Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of Imperial Diecast. And today I'm going to be showing you a diecast car you might never knew existed. That is, apart from those people who found this video while searching for a review of this particular model. If you did, I'll start the review in a moment, but to my regular viewers, I just wanted to quickly explain where I got this car from. This is a model that you will not find at most online European or North American diecast retailers. Instead, I bought this model on AliExpress and had it shipped from China, which took about 3 weeks to arrive. The cool thing about AliExpress is that they sell all kinds of interesting 132 scale models you will not find anywhere else, except maybe on eBay.com. And this is actually the first four-door sedan that I'm reviewing in 132 scale, because usually my 132s are sports cars or supercars, and this model cost me $11 approximately, and free shipping. So, not expensive at all, and at the same time, black sedan, bright interior, you know I had to buy it. And this car is a 132 scale Honda Accord by Sheng Hui. Built between 2007 to 2012, this is an 8th generation Honda Accord, which was also sold as the 5th generation Honda Inspire in Japan, and as the Proton Perdana in Malaysia. From the looks of it, this model most closely resembles the 5th generation Honda Inspire or the facelifted North American 8th generation Honda Accord, rather than the European 8th generation Honda Accord model. But because the 5th generation Honda Inspire had a different engine, namely a 3.5-liter V6 rather than a 2.4-liter inline-4 like this car does, I am quite certain that this is the North American facelifted 8th generation version. On the bottom of the car, it doesn't say what year this particular car is from, but it can't be earlier than 2011, because 2011 was the year when the 8th generation Accord received a facelift, and before that, the taillights of this car used to look like this, but after the facelift, they looked like this, which also resembles the shape of the taillights on this model. Now, the Honda Accord is currently in its 10th generation, and there's also a 132 scale model of the 10th generation with all 4 doors opening, rather than just the front 2 like on this car. But one of the reasons why I bought this older 8th generation Accord instead is not only because this one has a bright interior compared to the all-black interior of the 10th gen, but also because the headlights on that model have horrible pegs, while this car's headlights look amazing. So looking at the front of this car, you're going to notice the Honda badge in the center of the grille. And you can see that this grille has 3 horizontal slats and 4 vertical slats. I think that this is where the creators of this diecast car took the most artistic license, because I can't seem to find pictures on the internet where the grille of the 8th generation Honda Accord looks exactly like this. Rather, I can find pictures where the vertical slats don't really appear and the horizontal ones are more pronounced. Nevertheless, it is a pretty cool looking grille on this 132 scale diecast car. Below it, you will find a black license plate with some Chinese lettering, and below that it says Accord. Further below, you can see that we have 2 fog lamps, although these are just colored in matte silver paint. The most interesting aspect about the front of the car are these huge headlights. And they actually don't have any real and noticeable pegs. And the big hole that you see right there is actually for the light, as in this car actually has light and sound because it's a model from China. And as you can see right here, it lights up beautifully in the dark. And the cool thing about this 132 scale car is that the front hood actually opens. Check that out. Now let's take a closer look at the engine. So what you're looking at here is a 2.4 liter inline-4 engine, which is rated at either 177 or 190 brake horsepower, depending on the LX or EX trim level of the car. For a 132 scale, the amount of engine detail here is pretty impressive actually. And now let's move on to the rest of the car. Here's a look at the car's side profile. You can see that we have the indicator painted in silver. Other than that, we have some pretty nice looking silver rims. I think these are 17-inch alloys. And moving closer to check them out, the car does not have any brake discs or calipers, but with these rims that shouldn't matter. One flaw that this car of mine has is that if you look at the bottom, you can see that the tire here has like a crack on the tire wall. So it's a bit damaged, but I mean, at the end of the day, I just paid like $11 for this car, so it doesn't really matter to me. I did message the seller, but he did not respond. But anyway, let's move on to the rest of the car. Another flaw that is probably limited to my particular model is that when the car moves, it actually makes a ticking sound. Check this out. But I think the reason for that is because this actually has a pullback mechanism. Moving on to the back of the car, what I really appreciate is this three-dimensional Honda badge right here. This is not a sticker or a two-dimensional print, it's really three-dimensional, and for a 132 scale car, that's a lot of detail. Next to it, you can see Accord written, and Accord is also written on the rear license plate. And down here, you can see that it says 2.4 iVTEC, which is also pretty cool. But what surprised me most is that on this 132 scale car, they actually bothered to do parking sensors, all 4 of them. Look at that. That is so impressive. The taillights are also done pretty alright. I mean, what I don't like about them, and that's my other point of criticism on this car, is that they used a very dark red plastic for it. I think the taillights would have looked so much better if they had used a brighter shade of red. At the very bottom, you can see the exhaust of this car. Now, when I bought this car, all of this was just black. However, I painted the exhaust tip silver as well as the muffler. But I'm going to show you that later when I show you the bottom of the car. Despite being 132 scale, another cool feature of this car is that the trunk also opens, which is pretty awesome. And inside, there's not a whole lot to see except the cabling for the light and sound mechanism. And now let's check out the interior of this car. So here we are at the passenger side. And I have to tell you that I actually took a silver paint and I painted this line that runs along the trim of the dashboard. And I also painted the air vent, or the trim of the air vent essentially. Because, I mean, the interior of the 132 scale car is not like particularly well done or interesting, but it does have the details of the real 8th gen Honda Accord. And I also painted these buttons in the center console silver a little bit. So it looks a bit better than the all-black interior that the real car comes with the exception of these seats, which are already painted in beige. And not only that, but you can also see that these seats have a little bit of creasing designed into them, just like on the real car, which you can see right here as a picture of the interior of the car, and you can also see that the seats are beige and have these creases in the leather. Apart from that, we have a center armrest right there with the handbrake, and the back seats are also designed in a similar fashion. Now, one thing I noticed when I bought this car is that the back seats actually do not align with the rear deck. Instead, you have like this half-centimeter gap in the sense that the back seats are too high. And initially, I thought that the back seats were like just positioned wrongly, and that if I could take the car apart, I could put the back seats a little further down. However, this is the way it is on every single one of these 132 scale diecast cars, because you can see right here that it blends into the plastic. So this is not something that you can move around. And I think the reason why they designed the back seats so high is because this car has a pullback mechanism, and you need like some space for the pullback mechanism, and that's the reason why the back seats are so high. It's unrealistic. I wish that they had just made them lower like the front seats. But, I mean, yeah. It's the only real design flaw of this car. And of course that this part here should also be painted black rather than left transparent. But anyway, one cool thing about this car is that it actually has a sunroof. And the sunroof allows you to see into the interior from the top, which is pretty nice. So moving on to the driver's side of this car. Again, you can see here the work that I did. What I did was I took some silver paint and I also painted the interior side of the steering wheel in silver just to give it that extra bit of detail. In the center, you would expect a Honda logo, but of course this one does not have it. And you can also not really see anything on the instrument panel because they didn't even put a sticker there. However, I mean, for a 132 scale car, the fact that you have like a beige interior and a black exterior is pretty enough in terms of detail that I don't need more extra stuff, especially not if it's just like $10. And here's a look at the bottom of the car. You can see the company's name here. It says Sheng Hui, Accord, 132 scale, made in China. And here's a little bit more of my paintwork that I did. I basically painted this entire exhaust system all the way down to the muffler and the exhaust tip at the back in silver just to give it a little bit more detail. Over here at the front is the battery compartment. So what you'll essentially need is a screwdriver to be able to remove the cover of the battery compartment, and then you can put I think it says here AG13 1.5 volt, and you're going to need 3 pieces, and that's when the light and sound will work. Back in the day, like maybe 2 or 3 years ago, these Chinese retailers used to ship the batteries with the car, but now that postal regulations have increased and become more strict, many of them don't. So these are the batteries that you're going to need. You can see that it says LR44. Button cell, and you're going to need 3 of them. And the way you put these in is you'll see that the battery compartment has 2 holes and one is deeper than the other. So in the deeper hole, you're actually going to put 2 batteries in the following configuration, like this. All right, so that this part is visible and they're stacked exactly like this, one on top of the other. So it's like minus, plus, minus, plus. And on the shallower part, you're going to put a battery in this direction, so it's plus, minus. So let's carefully put these in. Sometimes they tend to turn a little bit. It's a very tight fit. Okay, I got one in. Here's the second one, and then put this one in the shallower part facing this way. And then you just close the lid and then put the screw back on. Okay, so there are 2 different functions for the light and sound. The first one is an engine revving, which is triggered if you open the driver's side door. And the second sound is the horn, which is triggered if you open the passenger side door. Now let's observe these same effects from the back. Alright guys, I hope you liked this review of the 132 scale Honda Accord by Sheng Hui. And I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised by the level of detail and quality for what is essentially a children's toy. Thanks again for watching, have a nice day, and I'll see you in the next episode of Imperial Diecast.